All right, so you guys really sent us down a rabbit hole this time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a deep dive into stories about young people committing serious crimes
Okay.
and ending up, in prison.
Wow.
It's heavy stuff for sure, but, the goal here is to understand,
Right.
not just be shocked, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Our main source is this YouTube video,
hmm
20 youngest kids who were sentenced to prison from the Scary Cherry.
Oh, I've seen that channel.
It's definitely made to grab your attention.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to break down the facts here
Okay.
and see what we can pull out of it,
Yeah, sure.
Get some insights with your help, of course.
I'm ready.
Okay, so the video presents 20 cases, and it starts with the oldest and goes down to the youngest,
Oh, wow.
which is quite a journey in itself.
Yeah.
Let's start with Christian Fernandez.
Okay.
He was just 12 years old when he was convicted of killing his 2-year-old half-brother.
Oh, gosh.
Abuse, neglect, questions about his mental capacity.
Oh.
So it's like this perfect storm,
Yeah.
all these factors just colliding.
It makes you think about the line between a child's culpability and the environment
Right?
that they're raised in. You know?
Yeah.
Like, if there were signs of abuse,
Yeah.
could this have been prevented?
Exactly.
Where does individual responsibility actually begin
Right.
when a child's world is already so broken?
It's like trying to untangle a knot, isn't
Yeah.
it? You've got the individual, the family, the system all playing a part.
Yeah.
Then you have the case of the bathtub girls.
Okay.
2 Canadian sisters, 15 and 16.
Okay.
They drowned their alcoholic mother,
Wow.
and their alleged motive was to collect insurance money and travel to Europe,
Really?
apparently with encouragement from their friends.
Oh, wow. That brings in a whole other layer to it.
Right.
That peer pressure,
Yeah.
especially in adolescence,
Huge.
Teenagers, they want to belong, they want to be accepted.
Totally.
And sometimes that can lead them down these, incredibly dangerous paths.
It really makes you wonder, how much can we hold someone accountable when their brain is literally still developing?
That's a good question.
And speaking of brains not fully formed,
Okay.
there's Brenda Spencer,
Okay.
16 years old when she shot up an elementary school,
Oh, my God.
and her explanation was, I don't like Mondays.
Wow.
Well-
Shelling, right.
Yeah, that one really shows how difficult it is to predict and prevent these seemingly random
Peer
acts
behavior.
of violence.
Yeah.
The video mentions access to firearms,
Mhm.
behavioral issues, possible mental illness,
Right.
and it just raises that question.
Yeah.
How do we create a system that catches these warning signs
Yes.
before it's too late?
It's a huge question.
It is.
Especially with all the stigma around mental health. It's like
Yeah.
we expect people to just snap out of it,
Right. Okay.
instead of giving them the support they need.
Yeah.
Then you have Eric Smith.
Okay.
He was 13 years old when he killed a 4-year-old boy,
Gosh.
and the video describes a disturbing lack of remorse from him.
Really? Which makes you wonder if he even understood,
Right.
how serious his actions were.
Yeah, that's where psychology and law get really tricky.
For sure.
How do we assess culpability
Mm-hmm.
when a child's development,
Right.
emotionally and cognitively,
Yeah.
might be so different from an adult's?
And what about rehabilitation?
Right.
How do we balance punishment with the possibility of change,
Yeah,
especially for someone so young?
that's tough.
Then there's Daniel Bartlam,
Okay.
14 years old when he killed his mother,
Oh, wow.
allegedly because he was inspired by a TV show.
That raises a question about the influence of media, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Particularly violent content.
Right.
It's not about blaming TV shows or anything like that,
No, of course not.
but about understanding
Yeah.
how young people process what they consume.
Right.
Can it desensitize them to violence?
Yeah.
Can it blur the lines between fantasy and reality?
It's like that whole nature versus nurture debate.
Yeah,
But with media added in,
that's exactly.
and then we have Mary Bell,
Okay.
who committed 2 murders at the age of 10.
10.
10.
Wow.
The video highlights a troubled upbringing and disturbing behavior towards other children.
This case is exceptionally rare,
Yeah.
but it forces us to consider the potential for serious disturbance,
Right.
even in very young children.
Yeah.
If those warning signs were there,
Right.
could intervention have made a difference?
Exactly.
And how do we create a system that supports families
Mm-hmm.
who are struggling with these kinds of issues?
Okay, let's shift gears a bit here.
Okay.
Roxana Sikorsky.
Okay.
She was 15 years old when she attempted to kill her family,
Oh, gosh.
allegedly influenced by her older boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
And her adoptive parents pleaded for leniency
Really?
because she had a history of abuse.
This brings up the issue of exploitation
Right.
and how trauma
Yeah.
can make someone more vulnerable
Yes.
to manipulation.
Totally.
It's a reminder that sometimes
Yeah.
the perpetrator is also a victim.
It's a heartbreaking cycle.
It is.
And it really makes you realize that sometimes the lines between good and bad,
Right.
victim and offender,
Right.
they're a lot blurrier than we'd like to think.
For sure.
And speaking of blurry lines,
Okay.
the case of Lionel Tate.
Okay.
He was 14 when he killed a 6-year-old girl.
Oh, my.
And he claimed they were wrestling.
Really?
It sparked a huge debate about trying children as adults. I mean,
Yeah.
the brutality of the crime and the questions about intent made it really controversial.
Yeah.
It forced people to grapple with this question. When does a child cross the line into adult accountability?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
It's a tough one.
How do we reconcile that with the fact that their brains are still developing?
Yeah.
Another case that shook people up was TJ Lane.
Okay.
17 years old. He
And-
seemed like the quiet one
Oh, yeah?
until he committed a school shooting,
Right.
and seemingly without a clear motive.
That one is chilling because it shows how hard it is to identify potential threats.
Yeah.
Like, we look for these obvious warning signs,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the kids who fly under the radar?
And what about the role of mental health in all of this?
Yeah.
Could there have been underlying issues that were missed or ignored?
It's a question that haunts us,
It does.
especially after so many tragedies.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a constant challenge, isn't it? Trying to find that balance
Yeah.
between safety and individual rights,
Right.
trying to predict the unpredictable. It's
impossible.
It is, but that's what makes these cases so compelling,
You know.
so important to try and understand.
Okay, so we've got another case here
Okay.
that really digs into these complicated family dynamics.
All right.
Derek and Alex King.
Okay.
These were brothers who killed their father
Oh, what?
and then tried to blame it on someone else.
Okay.
It really shows you how messy the truth can be,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about kids, right?
Who might be scared, confused,
Mm-hmm.
and just trying to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Even if it means lying.
Right.
And it makes you think about accountability,
Yeah.
even if there were problems in the family.
Mm.
Taking a life is still taking a life.
Right.
How do you navigate that?
That's a tough one.
Before we move on, I have to bring up Jesse Pomeroy.
Okay.
He became the youngest serial killer in American history
Right.
back in the late 1800s.
Wow.
He was only 14,
Oh my gosh.
which is just mind-blowing.
It's a fascinating case from a historical perspective.
Yeah.
It shows how much our understanding of juvenile crime has
Right.
evolved.
Yeah.
Back then, the idea of a child
Mm-hmm.
being capable of that kind of calculated violence was almost unthinkable.
It makes you realize that even though the way we talk about these issues is different today,
Right.
the problem itself isn't new.
It's been around.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Joshua Phillips.
Okay.
He was also 14 when he murdered an 8-year-old girl
Oh my gosh.
and then hid her body under his bed.
Wow.
I can't even imagine the psychological impact
Yeah.
of doing something like that at such a young age.
What's striking is that attempt to deny reality,
Right.
to pretend it never happened.
Yeah.
It speaks to the immense guilt and fear that must come with an act like that,
Yeah.
especially for someone whose brain is still developing,
Right.
those coping mechanisms.
Yeah, it's almost like their minds can't handle it.
Right.
So they just try to bury it.
Yeah, literally in this case.
Literally.
Wow.
This next one, Anissa Weir and Morgan Geyser.
Okay.
This takes us into the world of internet lore.
Okay.
The Slender Man stabbing
Right.
two 12-year-olds who tried to kill their friend
Oh, God.
to appease a fictional character.
That one really captures the power of the internet
It
and
does.
how it can blur those lines
Yeah.
between fantasy and reality,
Right.
especially for young people
Right.
who are still developing their critical thinking skills. Absolutely. And it raises all those questions about mental health,
Yeah.
delusion.
Right.
How do we determine culpability
Right.
when those factors are involved?
It's a tough one.
It's a legal and moral minefield.
It is.
What's interesting is that one girl went to prison
Right.
and the other was sent to a mental hospital.
It reflects that debate about how to approach juvenile justice
Yeah,
when mental illness is a factor.
for sure.
Do we prioritize punishment or treatment?
It's a tough call.
It is.
I think it really speaks to the need for a more individualized approach, taking the specifics of each case into account.
For sure.
Okay, shifting gears to a case from Japan.
All right.
Natsumitsuchi.
Okay.
She killed a classmate at 11 years old
Oh, wow.
and then became a meme.
Really?
Talk about a bizarre and disturbing twist.
It raises those questions about cultural responses to crime.
Yeah.
The desensitizing effect of the internet.
For
The
sure.
way we consume these stories.
It's like tragedy becomes entertainment, which is a slippery slope.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost like we're losing our ability to empathize.
Right.
Or maybe we're just overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, brace yourself because this next one is heavy.
Okay.
Nehemiah Grigo
Okay.
planned and killed his entire family at 19.
Oh, my gosh.
It's hard to even fathom that level of darkness.
This is where we have to confront the limits of our understanding.
I think so.
You know what drives someone to do something like that?
Yeah.
To their own family?
It's unimaginable.
It really challenges our beliefs about family love,
Yeah.
the sanctity of human life.
It's like staring into the abyss.
It is.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Zachary Nagel.
Okay.
He killed his allegedly abusive father at 15.
Oh, wow.
Raises all sorts of questions about self-defense,
Right.
the limits of the law.
It forces us to think about the context of the crime,
Yeah.
the history of abuse, whether a child can really be held responsible when they're acting out of desperation or survival.
How much can a child endure
Right.
before they snap?
Yeah.
Where's the line between victim and offender?
It's a blurry one.
This next case is another one that's hard to wrap your head around.
Okay.
Shirley Wolf and Cindy Collier, both 15,
Yeah.
killed an elderly woman seemingly to escape their circumstances.
It shows the impulsiveness of adolescence,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that lack of foresight.
Right.
They might have been seeking freedom or excitement,
Right.
but they took a life
They did.
and destroyed their own futures.
It's tragic.
It is.
It's a reminder that actions have consequences.
Yes.
And sometimes those consequences are bigger than we can imagine.
All right. We've reached the last case on our list.
It's okay.
Conrad Schaefer
Okay.
committed 2 murders in separate incidents
Wow.
at just 15 years old.
That's chilling.
This one sends chills down your spine because it suggests a pattern of escalating violence.
Does.
Makes you think about early intervention.
For sure.
Could something have been done
Right.
to interrupt this trajectory
Yeah.
before it got to this point?
It makes you wonder about the signs,
Mm-hmm.
the missed opportunities,
Yeah.
the what ifs.
And it brings us back to that central question.
Yeah.
How do we prevent these tragedies?
How do we stop this from happening?
It's a question that really stays with you, doesn't it?
It does.
How do we create a world where these stories,
Yeah.
they don't happen as often,
Yeah.
where they're less tragic?
It's like we've been on this roller coaster,
Yeah.
going from shock to sadness to anger.
Right.
And I think now landing on a sense of urgency, like what do we do with all this information?
Yeah, I know.
We've covered 20 cases,
A lot of stories.
each one a tragedy.
Yeah.
But are there any common threads that you see?
One thing that really stands out to me is just the complexity
Yeah.
of these situations.
Mhm.
It's never just one thing.
Right.
It's a combination,
Yeah.
individual vulnerabilities,
Right.
family dynamics,
Mhm.
societal pressures,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes just plain bad luck.
Yeah.
It's like a recipe for disaster,
Yeah.
but with a lot of missing ingredients.
So how do we fill those gaps then?
That's the question.
Is it mental health resources?
It's part of it.
Early intervention programs?
Okay.
Addressing things like poverty and inequality?
It's all of those things.
Wow.
And more, it's about creating a society
Right.
where kids feel seen and heard,
Yeah.
where they feel supported,
Supported.
where
Yeah.
seeking help isn't something to be ashamed of,
Right.
but encouraged,
Yes.
where families have the resources, to provide a stable, loving environment.
It's a huge task.
It is.
I keep coming back to this idea of prevention.
It's prevention, yeah.
Like if we can identify the risk factors early,
Right.
maybe we can stop things from getting worse. But how do we do that
Right.
without, overstepping boundaries
Yeah.
or turning every little thing a kid does into a crime?
That's the tightrope we have to walk, isn't it?
It is a tough one.
It is. It's about protecting kids while respecting their autonomy.
Right.
It's about recognizing that even kids who make really bad choices,
Yeah.
they're still kids.
Yeah.
And they deserve a chance.
At Redemption,
Yeah.
this whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah,
The world is complicated.
it is.
Bad things happen to good people, and good people do bad things.
That's true.
But we can't give up on these kids.
No.
Even the ones who make headlines for all the wrong reasons.
Every single one of these cases
Yeah.
represents a life that could have been different,
Yeah. Yeah.
A future that could have been brighter.
It's a powerful thought.
It
And
is.
while we can't change the past,
No, we can't.
we can learn from it
We can.
and work towards a future where these stories,
Right.
they're not as common.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Finding that hope in the darkness
Mm-hmm.
and using it to guide us towards a better future.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course.
It's been an emotional journey, but I think
Yeah.
it's left us with a lot to think about.